This is a 102.7 FM Toowoomba original podcast.
Welcome everybody to my podcast, Big Little Small Talk. I'm Megan O'Hara-Sullivan and I love to talk, but I also love to listen. If you're new here, welcome. Thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoy the episode. And we're here today with Chris Black, who calls himself a self-confessed business nerd. So that sounds fairly interesting. But most importantly, he is also the chairman of Momentum Mental Health. Welcome, Chris.
Thanks, Megan. Appreciate the opportunity.
Look, I really wanted to get you on at this moment because you have just led a crew of 19 people on the Kokoda Trail and you've come back, you've survived. How did you go?
Unbelievable experience. I don't think words can describe it, and I really haven't done it justice so far in telling people how life-changing it was. We've been back nearly 2 weeks now, and I think for the first week we had the real post-adventure blues, I think, of back into the routine of life. Over there, it's just simplicity. It's beautiful. You turn off to the world, the people are stunning, and then we get back to the rat race and go back into the routine of life. But it's a fantastic opportunity, fantastic trip, and good group of people.
So, when you think about it and you were thinking all the time that you're walking and sort of nearing the end of it, what's kind of your overall impression? Like, what's your sense of what do you feel when you think about it?
Probably really emotional. I think probably the overarching feeling was just emotion. Positive, negative, frustration at how many lives were lost, concern that history repeats with all the tension and wars going on. It wasn't that long ago, really, and we're making the same mistakes on repeat over again. Probably the other takeaway from it is we've got some beautiful humans in our community. 19 really well-intentioned, humble people that weren't, most of them adventure freaks or fitness fanatics. They put their hand up with a lot of courage and they said, let's have a crack at this and do some good for our community. And I can't thank them enough for that, but they also got a lot out of it as well personally with what they achieved. So,
Well, I want to talk about the reason why you went and what the purpose of it was, but can you sort of, I guess for all our young listeners, talk about the Kokoda Trail and its history?
yeah, so the Kokoda Trail, steeped in history from Australian military perspective, and it was used to defend Australia back in the Second World War. 1942, the Japanese were invading Australia. They bombed the north of Australia and essentially used Papua New Guinea as a stronghold. And they landed on the north side of Papua New Guinea and were essentially marching across Papua New Guinea to the south side, which is only 20 or so kilometres away from, Australia. And they were going to use that as a base then to invade Australia. So our Australian services deployed over there and some real reservists. Our main fighters were over in the main wars over in Europe, and they were told it was going to be a holiday, bring your tennis rackets. And all of a sudden they land in the Papua New Guinea jungle. High humidity, rain, malaria, dysentery, and it was far from a pleasant experience. And they spent months upon months upon months defending the most rugged terrain across the Owen Stanley Ranges, single file in a lot of cases, giving their lives to keep Japan to the north of us. So to retrace their footsteps, to walk from Kokoda to Owen's Corner, which is near Port Moresby, which is 96 kilometres, took us 8 days, living and breathing and seeing firsthand exactly where they went and living in the villages with the local people. And those are descendants of the Fuzzy Wuzzies who supported the Australian troops back in the 1940s. It was just an amazing experience. So yeah, I think one word, it'd be just highly emotional.
How much of that sense of the Australian involvement is there? How much do you get of that? Is it mentioned or are there ways of remembering those people? Or
I think that there is, but over there, it's very much limited on the track. And I think, to be honest, that's a beautiful thing. It's still in its very primitive form. The tracks aren't formed or improved. There's really no human development, from Kokoda through to Owen's Corner. So you're really doing it in the same way that they did, obviously with tents and a few easier things. But yeah, it's a very, very basic, there's certainly no occupational health and safety and scrambling over rocks and cliffs and those sort of things. There's not too much risk mitigation, but it was all safe and done very well. But yeah, really eye-opening experience to what it would have like been living there for 3, 6, 9 months back in the day.
what was the track like? I imagine that it's kind of very narrow, very covered in tree roots and muddy. I sort of picture and wading through rivers. Is that correct?
Pretty much, absolutely. So we went in the dry season, June, but it was far from dry and storms most afternoons. And as soon as it storms, everything just turns to this clayey, mucky mud. So you really slow down. You've got to keep your footing. Yeah, absolutely. Rivers rise really, really quickly there. So a big, afternoon thunderstorm, and you might have to, wait on the one side of the river till it goes down again. So you're really exposed to the elements. But I think that just adds to the allure of the place. And I can see you smile, and
I was just grimacing, more like it.
yeah, I didn't quite get you back this time, did I?
No, we did Everest Base Camp together, but and I have just spent 2 weeks in the New South Wales bush on a leadership program. I think that was the hardest thing I've ever done
Oh,
compared to
really?
even Everest
Yeah,
Base Camp.
wow.
But anyway, it's not about me; it's about you.
One day it
So
should be about you though, Megan, I would have thought.
one day. So that heat. Tell me about the heat and.
Yeah, mid-30s, high humidity into a nice afternoon thunderstorm every day. So we were pretty much wet the whole time. And foot care was probably really high on the agenda of making sure that we looked after ourselves. So drying out your feet and putting hand wash, the alcohol, onto your feet, which really dries them out as much as you can, is a great little tip for those with wet feet who need to dry them out quick.
You're not supposed to drink it.
No, no, not on
Right,
your
that was where I was
feet.
going wrong
Yeah,
there. Right,
yeah,
okay,
yeah.
right, yeah.
So yeah, it was just a grueling challenge, and unlike Everest Base Camp, where you're walking through the Himalayas with 8,000 plus meter mountains around you and turquoise streams, you're really up the side of the mountain over tree roots, mud, muck, through some rivers, hit to the top, and then straight back down. So you're literally going straight up,
Mhm.
straight down, and looking at your feet pretty much the whole time so you don't trip over.
Mm.
And we did trip over quite a lot.
Did you have any injuries? Anyone?
Nothing too major, to be honest. A few knees and just soreness and ankles and those normal things. A lot of blisters. Ali Goldman, the phenomenal Ali, blew a pair of walking boots and repaired them as best as she could, but she ended up walking a day in sandals. So, things like that that do go wrong, you've just got to make do. And she's an absolute trooper and strapped up her feet and didn't complain once. And really proudly, Ali, I think for me, really epitomizes courage.
And tell the listeners about Ali's story if you don't feel as though you're speaking out of school.
Yeah, I'll probably just give the highlights. Ali's a beautiful human that, has openly said she's one of our members. And as one of our members, she's been courageous enough to put her hands up and ask for a little bit of help. At Momentum Mental Health, we deal with people who just have challenges facing life sometimes. We all go through things at different points, but Ali's courageous enough to do so. And she's been part of our organisation for a number of years and put her hand up to do Everest Base Camp, which was way out of her comfort zone. And she would have been the first one to say so. But she was the first one to put her hand up again and do Kokoda. And she's an absolute trooper. And she doesn't complain. She acknowledges what she doesn't know and she asks for help. And we can learn so much from that. I was really proud that the group nominated her to lead us out at the end, up to the Owens Corner, up through the arches, holding the PNG flag. So
Oh,
she was our spiritual leader, with Craig Sleeman as well, who's another fantastic human who carried the Australian flag. So it was a really emotional moment seeing those two lead us home. But I think that's what Momentum's about, doing these treks and doing things that are really challenging and being uncomfortable forces you to find a new limit that you don't know it's possible in yourself. And Megan, I know you found that at base camp. You were way out of your comfort zone.
only because I couldn't get a beer at the Everest Base Camp, but that was about all. Yeah.
But we all were at different points, weren't we? And we all found that low point, but as a crew, we came together and we got everyone home.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Craig Sleeman, and he is one of those people that you think that you see leadership in different forms, but he's a person that was incredibly positive, incredibly generous, kind to everyone else. And I thought when I got back from base camp, I was going to be that person. I was going to be Craig. And I got back day one, all my plans crumbled. I was not that positive person that Craig does. So, I mean, can you learn it? Are you born with it? I don't know. And, when the screws are tightened and tightened and tightened with heat and whatever else, you really see what you're made of, don't you?
I think you do. You definitely do. But also, I know that we're all so much more capable of more than we think. I genuinely believe our bodies are so strong. Our minds are the parts that probably let us down first. And we're a mental health organisation, and whether you're fully functioning and you're the CEO of the Commonwealth Bank, or you're just a common person on the street, all of us go through different challenges in life, and we're all on a continuum from really fully flourishing and competent and competent with your life through to suicidal. And you sort of can really flex up and down on that journey. And we acknowledge at Momentum that we want to just get people that little bit better and give them some tools in their toolkit so that they can help themselves. And really importantly, what we learned was help each other. A part like Nepal, why Papua New Guinea was so beautiful in the rural communities, they've got this village mentality. They band together. They're brothers. They don't have everything. In fact, they're a third world country. They don't have much, but they're beautiful and they're happy people. And it was typified when one of the young kids needed to get to Port Moresby, which is sort of 60 kilometres, part way through our journey. This young kid turned up, and he kept turning up and, said, well, who's that little kid that's now part of our group? He said, oh, that's little Timmy. He's a nephew of one of our porters, and we're just going to take him now. I said, well, where's his dad? Oh, he's back there. But his dad said he could come along, and as a village, we'll get him to Port Moresby because that's what needs to be done. Imagine doing that in Australia.
Mm. Mm.
Wouldn't even be considered. And I know we're in a different world, but I think we can all do that little bit more and, be like a little bit more like Craig Sleeman with our positivity. We're never going to be him. He's a unique individual, but I reckon we've all just got that little bit in us.
Yeah, that's right. And leadership comes in different forms too. Just going back to the practicalities of it, Chris, where do you sleep at night time?
In a tent. So,
And are you putting the tents up yourself?
yeah, so we've got our walking brothers, so the local Papua New Guineans who support our trek. So again, just probably to give you numbers, there's 4 tour guides, 2 guides, a registered nurse, and a paramedic, a doctor from an EE department. Heather Phoebe was one of our trekking guides who came to base camp with us. And then there's probably 20, 25 walking brothers who support us, cook, carry the tents, show us the local villages, and also quasi protect us, to be honest. It is a fairly dangerous place when you get to Port Moresby, you're behind 10-foot fences, and then you get out to the villages and it's beautiful and calm. And I think a big part of that is the protection that our walking brothers, just by their presence, give us there. So they're an absolute integral part. And the other part that we didn't really realise, during the really tricky pits or the really slippery parts, our walking brothers would just amazingly walk behind us. They would find us and just filter into the line and hang on to us. And they were our protectors, a lot more than probably what we realised. From tripping over through to, anything more serious as well.
And I know, say, with Everest Base Camp, Sherpas are families, not an occupation. That was one of the first things that we learned. So, in terms of like who controls the tourism there on the Kokoda Track, and how does that work? Who gets to be the walking brothers?
Yeah, so I think there's relationships, from my understanding. The tour company, the Australian-based tour company, Aurora Adventures, has relationships with the locals over there. And there's a senior walking brother who assembles their group to have all of those people over there. So I think it's a bit of a bat call, and they all walk from across Papua New Guinea to be at the start line by a certain date. They get to the end and they walk back to their villages.
And did you come across other groups walking? How does that all work? Is there other groups on there at the same time?
Yeah, really amazing. And that was a huge difference with Everest Base Camp. In the 8 days we were out there, we saw one group and they were coming the other way. So I think there's a fair bit of they're on the same track going the same way rather than against the grain. But it was really beautiful just to be literally the only ones out there from our perspective. When we'd stay in a new village, and again, staying in a new village is just some grass that we'd put the tents up on, and there'd be some pretty primitive toilets, and The shower might be a hose that comes out of the wall, or it might be a creek to bathe in. But we were the only Westerners in those villages every single night. One day we had a couple of footies that South Junior Rugby League donated to us and some jerseys, and we were giving them out along the trip. And a few of us just passed a footy around in a fogey, which was one of the villages most of the way through. And all of a sudden there was a game of touch football with the Aussies and the locals, 30 on 30 over one of the... It was a huge, but it was beautiful.
Yeah.
And so simple to come together.
Yeah, isn't that lovely? It's amazing. I'll just remind the listeners that they're on 102.7 FM. My name's Megan O'Hara Sullivan. This is Big Little Small Talk, and we're talking to Chris Black, who has just led a group of 19 Toowoomba locals and surroundings on a fundraising, I would say, journey to Kokoda and for Momentum Mental Health. So, Chris, let's talk about Momentum Mental Health. You're the chairman. How long have you been doing that role?
4 years being the chairman, so real...
Come in with a splash, haven't you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So Momentum's a 26-year-old organisation starting, a while ago, called Toowoomba Clubhouse. And up until about 4 years ago, when I was a chairman, we were sort of a bit of a drop-in service, and we looked after a lot of vulnerable people within our community, and we provided them a place to stay. But probably 4 years ago, we really focused on how we could provide proactive support and really make their lives that little bit better by giving them some tools and some capability to look after themselves and others. And we rebranded to Momentum Mental Health and shifted the way that we did things. So that was a bit of a line in the sand moment, focusing on well-being rather than mental health and stigma around diagnosis. But it is still very challenging.
Tell me about some of those challenges. What are they?
Oh, well, probably firstly, we've got an epidemic of mental health in our community. There is absolutely no doubt in my mind. To give you some statistics, I think we're seeing 40% more people this year than what we did last year. We have 7,000 attendances through our premise, and we are headquartered here in Toowoomba, but we're also located in Chinchilla, Miles, Warwick as well, and outservice Kingaroy. We've expanded to those regions because there has been a need. So 40% more people are coming to see us. But the other big part of this, we get funded, a big part. We raised $157,000 from this charity trek to Kokoda, which was amazing. So local people believing in our organisation, putting their hands in their pocket and believing in what we do to help people free of charge. But the challenge is, the primary health network and some of our other funding partners really want to put people with mental health into a box. And we don't believe in that. We acknowledge that there is a big challenge. We acknowledge that there's only so much money to help people. The primary net health, right now as it sits on the 28th of June, we have a $668,000 hole in our budget caused by lack of funding from a renewal perspective because of delays within the system. And I'm not going to point fingers at who or what and where, but it's the system that is breaking down. We've helped if we just want to keep talking numbers. And as a business, Megan, and as the chairman, as the director, I feel extremely terrible that this is happening. But we've got 7,000 attendances from people, 800 members that clearly see value in our free services. On top of that, out of those 800 particular members, I think 250 odd are what we call unfunded. So they don't fit into any of those boxes. The people of Toowoomba and our region have donated money, and we offer services for free because they are courageous enough to work on their mental health. They are falling through the cracks. And our services are at absolute risk of not proceeding if we can't get some basic block funding from our federal partners to continue to do what we're doing. So that's a bit of a tangent and a bit of a rant there, Megan, but I'm extremely concerned, and it's not for just our organisation, it's the people, it's the stories, it's the most vulnerable people sometimes within our community that absolutely need a service, and there is no other service that has the heart that Momentum does.
So, Chris, you're saying the services that Momentum Mental Health is offering aren't duplicated here in Toowoomba at all, or in the outreach centres?
not the way that we deliver
Yeah.
things.
So tell me about the services. What sort of things are they exactly?
Yes.
The programs.
So the traditional programs are what's called psychosocial support and peer-based support and group-based support. So we offer programs where people can learn by being together and things like art therapy. So and you think, well, what is art therapy and how's it going to help someone's well-being? A lot of people struggle to talk about their challenges, but they can write it or draw it or visualize it and tell their story through art. We do Tai Chi and yoga for free. We do cooking classes. We do some basic services. We do a well-being hack where we talk about and provide some real-time education to people. We partner with Sunrise Way to help people with drug addiction work on their mental well-being. We work with the Queensland Police and the Federal Police with some high-risk youths and individuals that need a bit of guidance. We do work with Adapt Mentorship, Lifeline, Richmond Fellowship Queensland. We offer, so August last year, there was this huge gap in the marketplace. And again, maybe this is the wrong way of doing it. And maybe I've learnt my lesson as a director. But we believe in doing the right thing. And there was this huge gap and there was lots of people who needed clinical support by psychologists. We're extremely proud to start a new division with partnerships from Mindware to offer free psychological support to people who need it. And clearly there was a need. And yes, that was bulk billed and referral from a GP, but we've seen, I think, 250 people. But the really sad part, and I'm proud of that, but the bloody sad part of that, we've got 200 people on our waiting list. This funding doesn't get approved, Megan. We have to, unfortunately, tell them that they've got to find somewhere else. And that just proves that there is nowhere else at the moment. And we have an epidemic and a crisis within our community.
And I can hear the tension in your voice, Chris, and I mean it's a personal not a challenge, but it's a personal thing for you that you want to do the right thing and have all these people looked after. And as you say, it's a growing epidemic. So just the NDIS funding for individuals, does that cover some of your services or how does that work?
We have some individually managed people come through that way, but it's not the bread and butter we look after. A lot of those NDIS companies will provide some form of support and care, but not the psychosocial support and definitely not the clinical support through psychology. A lot of people will just walk through the front door. And again, they're courageous enough to want to work on their mental health. They're referred from GPs as well. They're referred from other members. You know, there's so many different ways that people will have sliding doors moments and come through to us. And so far, we've done our best to open our doors and welcome them in because they're courageous enough.
Chris, tell me about, I know that there isn't a typical client, of course there isn't, but say someone's listening and they go, well, I don't really feel great, but I don't think I'm that bad. I don't really know. What would they do? How would they approach Momentum Mental Health?
Well, the beautiful thing about what we have done in the past, they make a phone call or they turn up to the front door and we'll look up, we'll help them. That's primarily been the criteria. Moving forward, I honestly, I don't know. My hope is that we can continue to do that. We want to help people. We want to help people. And there's enough good people that want to see our services thrive. And everybody who deals with us and our referral partners and those people within the grassroots levels of our community understand the value of what we provide. It's just not a box that has been created from some unfortunate government department looking at nationalising the way things get done. There's money there, but it's just not being spent the right way in my mind.
Well, I mean, all solutions from government, everyone will say at every level of government, the solutions have to come from the community. And I suppose this is a community-led solution. And yet, is it the value being put on it? Just tell the listeners how going to Kokoda, like how did that raise 156,000 for Momentum Mental Health? How does that work?
Yeah, so we had 19 trekkers sign up from Toowoomba and they all agreed to fundraise $7,500. So they all had an individual target and they could fundraise however they wanted to fundraise, ask their friends and family, get donations, put on fundraising events. The other thing that we did, look to the corporate sector. Really proud to have some great corporate partners, FKG Group. So Gary Gardner has been our naming rights sponsor and very generous supporting our organisation through that as well. And there's probably 20 other organisations locally that gave $1,000 or more. So Really grassroots stuff. Again, they believed in our organisation and they wanted to support the trekkers doing something courageous. And the other thing we did some fundraising events. Did a fantastic event with James Castruccian, a two-time Guinness World Record holder and adventurer who was the first person to kayak unassisted to New Zealand and the first person to walk to the South Pole and back. He came to Toowoomba, we got him to Toowoomba and we did a fundraising lunch, which was really, really well received as well. But at the end of the day, we are community, we are grassroots, and tapping people on the shoulder who really believe in what we do. How we do it is probably how we've got to the point where we are.
Mm. Did you find trying to raise money? I know that we had to raise 6,500, I think, because it was Everest Base Camp is 6,500 meters above sea level.
Five and a half, yeah.
5.5. So where does the 7 that these guys raised, is that
I
significant?
just got greedy.
Just,
I just wanted more.
budget and wait for a bit more. Yeah, gotcha.
Well, it worked out, to be honest. Yeah, what we needed
What you need
to balance the budget for the year, to be honest.
Why not?
Yeah.
Why don't you just tell the listeners quickly about our friend Atlas? Who was Atlas at Everest Base Camp?
Yeah, Atlas, another great human. He would have been 5, I think, at the time. A son of Ben Southall, one of our tour guides. Young Atlas has just been brought up, like his name suggests, as a real global citizen. He was fortunate enough to come on our trip with us as a 5-year-old going to Everest Base Camp. Really great young kid. Not much is going to faze him, I don't think, for the rest of his life because he's just very resilient and pliable, I think, with whatever situation that he went in. Got carried for a bit, but geez, he's got a little ticker on him. He did well.
I've never seen a child so adaptable and never whinged, never complained, except one time he got asked to eat a little bit of mandarin and he didn't like that. It was the only time I ever saw him lose a little bit.
You're exactly right. The old mandarin. Don't give me fruit, Mum.
Yeah, that's right. Just going back to the trail itself, what about mosquitoes and that sort of thing?
Yeah, mosquitoes definitely there. Malaria is obviously very relevant. Prescription for anti-malaria tablets and some vaccinations before we went. But yeah, apart from that, lots of mosquito repellent and just hope that modern medicine does its thing.
When we got to Everest Base Camp, lots of people got really unwell and had to get medevaced out. Did you have anything like that?
No, we were very fortunate. We probably doubled down on our training, a lot more group training and a lot more consistent this time. Probably learn not our lesson a little bit, but really set some much clearer expectations much earlier on and did a lot more group training. So probably physically we were a bit more ready. So no, absolutely not. So we're pretty lucky. A lot of pre-work, knees, some really sore knees and rolled ankles and those sort of things. Boots broken, and a little bit of gastro within the group. But apart from that, we were extremely, extremely fortunate that, touch wood, everything went well and got everyone home and walked them out. And really fittingly, probably one of the things that, in a third world country, things go wrong and everything's island time. We finished at Owen's Corner. Everyone was happy and celebrating. And the 2 buses that were sort of due to come and pick us up got bogged and couldn't get through. So they threw us all.
One job.
Yeah, they threw us all. I reckon there would have been 30 of us on the back of a truck. And we're literally sardined in singing as, the half an hour truck trip in the back sliding around. And I reckon it was just a fitting way and we all absolutely loved it.
What song did you sing?
Welcome to the Jungle came through. A bit of Sweet Caroline was on. Limited options there, but we had another cracker too, which we belted out. But they were the 2 big ones that I remembered, yeah.
Chris, when we got to Everest Base Camp and you get to that iconic rock that says Everest Base Camp, you had a letter from each of our significant others. Did you do something like that this time round?
Yeah, we did that again. Yeah, so I didn't give it at the end. We sort of gave it maybe, I think, night 5, once people needed a little bit of an injection of energy and purpose, I think, to get them home. And everyone was a bit homesick as well, being offline for that long. Yeah, definitely another highlight, I think. And again, very emotional. I vividly remember sitting next to you, holding your hand, reading our letters in base camp. And that's a memory I'll never forget.
Yeah.
Another beautiful experience with the new group. And yeah, the Momentum crew organised all of that for everyone again this year. Just doing those little extras just makes it all worthwhile, I think.
Oh, it was certainly a beautiful gesture. It was, yes, an amazing thing. It really was. Just a thoughtful thing to do too. And I think that experience of, as you know, we're all still on a WhatsApp group together, that experience of bonding in a really fast and hard way, I guess, with a group of people is pretty unusual, isn't it?
Oh, it absolutely is. And, really quickly, people's barriers break down. You're buying in and you're all helping each other. So really vulnerable group, and that really fast-tracked, I think, how tight that we became. A lot of belly laughs, a lot of emotion, positive and negative, a lot of challenging parts. But yeah, I think once you get in that team environment and you've got that purpose and you've done it for a bigger reason than we're just walking 96 Ks, you're doing it to retrace the steps of our soldiers who defended our country. And we're raising money for a great community organisation like Momentum. Everyone really banded together and we had an absolute ball.
Mm. I won't say that I'm jealous, but I do have a tiny bit of FOMO. But anyway, another 2 years' time, we'll see what you're up to then, some other torturous thing. I'll just remind the listeners that we're on Big Little Small Talk. We're talking to Chris Black, who's the chairman of Momentum Mental Health, a mental health facility here in Toowoomba. And they've just come back from Kokoda, where they raised $156,000 for their organisation that needs recurrent funding, that plus more. Chris, I want to talk to you about your values. What are the things that drive you?
Oh, good question. What are my personal values? I think relationships have to sit right at the top of everything. I think doing hard things and doing really cool things with interesting people really drives me. But you can't be successful if you're alone. You've got to bring people on that journey because at the end of the day, we all come into this world with nothing and we leave with nothing. You've got to celebrate it with people and you've got to be able to build people up. Certainly, that's something that I try to do in all of my relationships to support other people. So that's probably right up there. Loyalty is huge for me. And I'd probably say my wife, well, we actually got asked one of the questions, what would your trekking buddy, some questions while some thinking time over there. How would you describe your trekking buddy? And Alicia and I, so my wife Alicia came on this trip and she did amazingly well. So she said I was kind. That's probably one of the top values that she described me as, and she probably knows me because, we've been married so long and she is also a psychologist. So I wouldn't challenge her at all. Be on the streets.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's probably right up there, I think. And the family unit and being a village, I think there's no more important thing.
Hallelujah. Tell me about your mum and dad. What memories do you have of your childhood?
Oh, we're taken back.
Do-
Yeah, so dad was a lawyer. So anyone describing dad from a work perspective, he worked at legal aid. So he devoted his life to vulnerable people in the social justice space. And anyone would describe him as having a really high regard for social justice and helping the small guy, and might have rubbed off. And mum was a teacher. So from Dulwich and Chillaway, and highly practical and great mum, very supportive, and we had a beautiful childhood to the point where we grew up only 2 doors away from where we live now, and I wanted to replicate my childhood with my 3 boys. So a bit of freedom on acreage and a bush down the back. So yeah, I was very blessed to grow up in Toowoomba, go to school at St Thomas Moores, and then on to Downlands, and then explore the world a little bit, live in London and live back in Brisbane. But Toowoomba was always going to be home for us to raise our children. So very blessed.
Lovely. And what happened in 2018 when we won Australia's 50 most influential financial planners, one of?
Oh, Megan, you've done a homework. So yeah, I was fortunate enough to be recognised as one of the most influential advisors within Australia, which was pretty cool. So for my life, I was a financial advisor and I really enjoyed helping people and seeing them financially wealthy when doing well and making smart decisions. So yeah, it was good to be recognised in that vein.
And then you said, okay, well, I'm going to take a leap of faith. And Purpa was born. Tell me about Purpa.
Yeah, Purpa came
Purpa with purpose?
Purpa, people with purpose. Pa from Sherpa, the people, and then purpose. So yeah, combining those two things together. So probably in between that, yeah, we were fortunate enough to be bought out of my old financial advisory firm by an American company. Knocked on the door and I said I wasn't for sale, and saying no to Americans was probably the best thing I did, and they ended up taking us out, and then crashed my bike and had a little bit of a sabbatical and had a bit of a reset and refresh after some pretty significant physical injuries, and just made me think about life again and where my priorities lie and what I was doing in the hecticness of raising 3 boys and probably doing too much. I'm not doing the job that I probably wanted to do either with them. So yeah, a bit of a sabbatical, traveled around Australia, and probably made me realize when I got back that I want to do things with a bit of intent and purpose. And part of that was helping business people to become successful. And they, typically are specialists in what they do. You might have a tradesman, a builder that is great with building things, but has never studied finance or accounting or marketing. And just because you're a great builder doesn't mean you're a great business owner. And, Toowoomba's a fantastic place, and we've got this really beautiful secret sauce that we help each other and we support locally and we donate back. And that's a phenomenal thing to have. But probably what I found, I was fortunate enough to be the MC for It's a Blokes thing a couple of years ago. And that's a brilliant event that raises millions of dollars every single lunch for prostate cancer. And seeing the philanthropy from the stage was phenomenal. And I thought, I've got to be able to help this. And there was this sort of burgeoning middle class of business that didn't quite know how to get there. And I could sort of really easily see it, well, not easily see it, but I could see it from the stage. And I thought I can help these people. And that's where Purple was born. And my hope is that we have phenomenal clients, beautiful human beings, and they're all really focused on supporting their own businesses and creating employment locally. But really importantly, they're good community citizens and they want to do that little bit more and give back. And now that their businesses are more successful, as once we start working with them, my hope is that they can continue to give back on bigger scales and continue the cycle, I suppose, of philanthropy back into our regions. And that's certainly my hope. And that's where it sort of started from.
So while you're having a little peek into their books, you can say, and now that you're doing so well,
You can
perhaps
afford to
might
give
like,
more.
that's right.
Yeah, and I
I'm
think
sure you can do it with, that beautiful smile of yours, and people go, oh, yes, Chris, yeah, and get me my checkbook, if whatever the metaphorical checkbook is these days.
your rubber arm has been twisted too from me, remember?
I think so. So when I was thinking about you, Chris, I was thinking this word metrosexual, you're a metrosexual. You're a modern guy. You love your yoga. You love your cricket, but you also love racing cars. Is that right?
Yeah, so brother and I have rallied cars for a number of years. It's sort of taken a bit of a hiatus the last couple, just to logistics. But yeah, we've won the two-wheel drive Queensland Rally Championship a few times, which again, probably no one really could see that in me from meeting me. But yeah, there's a lot of adrenaline flying through the bush, in an old car, sideways over gravel, and you're at the absolute limit of grip and not knowing what's around the next corner. And my job as the navigator is to tell my brother, who's the driver, how fast or slow he should be going without knowing what's around the corner. So, describing and communicating in very fast time to go as fast as possible, but not too fast because it ends.
So how long is it since you've done something like that?
Our last event was, no, 2021, I think, the Alpine Classic down in Victoria. So 105 cars, and we came 10th outright, which was really, really cool. Best event, bucket list, that one.
Right.
So yeah, unfortunately the car's gone, and growing up a little bit maybe,
Right.
and it is extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lie. It's probably not one that, with young kids, it's ideal if you're really ultra competitive, and I try to be.
Yeah, right. So, Chris, where do you see yourself sort of 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? Do you think about it at all?
I do, and probably a lot more in the last month because I turned 40 the day before we went to Kokoda, and had a bit of head noise in the lead up to it because I didn't feel like I was 40 or wanted to be 40, but it's a privilege to be 40 firstly, because not everyone gets there. But so in 30 years, I'll be 70, and probably haven't thought that far out, but I have mapped out sort of some of the things that I want to tick off over the next 10 years. And, each of those things comes with a bit of a timeline based on my physical health and emotional health and energy and, financial capacity as well. So I've got some cool things on the bucket list.
What sort of things are they? Just give me a little preview.
Yeah, so can be simple things. My son Joe's 12 and he's turning into a little man. Spending a week with him off grid as a rite of passage, something that probably doesn't happen anymore. You just get given a phone and at some point a beer and you become a man. And I don't think that's the right way to do it. And I've got a good friend who challenges me on that concept and has given me a bit of inspiration to do things like that. Mount Kilimanjaro. Alicia and I were going to do Machu Picchu as well. So physical challenges. And then other things as simple as, have a beer with your son when he turns 18. see your son, see your children get married and be happy. So there's some big lofty things, some ultra marathon running sits there as well. The Kosciuszko 50 is an event I want to do this year, but some injuries probably mean it's not going to happen this year. There's what's called a coast to coast race from one side of New Zealand to the other, where you kayak, ride and run 250 kilometers across in 2 days. And for some reason, I think that's a really cool thing to do. So ticking that off. I want to do a marathon as well. I've done a marathon informally by accident, but want to do a race marathon. And Alicia and I are loving our running at the moment. So there's a lot of cool things that I think we can do. And then outside of that, I've got a lot of work to do with Momentum, and I absolutely want to see Momentum thrive and not just sort of be here. I want to see the conversation around mental well-being and people courageous enough to put up their hand and ask for a little bit of help. I want that forefront of, the discussions in Toowoomba. I don't want to be in the boondocks and, in the back suburbs as an afterthought. I seriously believe there's so much more to do in that space. And I don't have anything specific that I, want to work on there or have a goal to work towards, but I'm very focused on making a difference, in this space, in our community more general.
Thank you for that work. I mean, it's just such invaluable work. And I think if anyone's going to lead them to success, Chris, it's going to be you. Can you give me 3 words? In 3 words, I am.
Megan.
You're not Megan.
No, I'm not Megan. No, that would be a
headspin
for you, absolutely. Probably want something deep and insightful too.
No, you can give me whatever you want.
I'm a father, a husband, and a humanist. Not religious from a faith perspective, but deeply believe in humans and people and humanity. And I think there's so much good that can come to the surface. We just need a little bit of influence and prodding. And I think if everyone does that little 1% more to reach what their potential or possibilities are, most of the problems in the world will be solved. So I think I'm a humanist, or I believe in humanity. Maybe I'm an optimist as well.
Lovely. Do you have a favourite royal?
Yeah, Harry's my man.
Is he?
He is. He runs his own race, and I think born into the royal family, he's not a stereotypical William. He's not a royal in the traditional sense of things. He's a roustabout, but I reckon he's a lot of fun. But he's trying to make his own path, and so I deeply respect the fact that he's made some really difficult decisions. Whether they're right or wrong, I don't know. But yeah, I'm a Harry man. And my middle boy's Harry too, so I can't pass him up.
I love it. You're not Megan, you're Harry.
Yeah, that's right.
What about the song that can't keep you off the dance floor? Are you a dancing man?
After a few, I can dance, typically very man dance, very arms around another bloke, hands in the air, maybe a rum in your hand.
Not the pants down, eagle rock.
Surely I'm now 40 and don't do that anymore.
Not anymore. No.
Not anymore. It's never happened. The Killers, Mr. Brightside, is the one that our old group of mates, and I'll drop a name here, Nathan Staines, is the absolute king of the Killers. So I love hanging out with my old mates and talking rubbish and getting on the dance floor with them.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Look, Chris, you are an exceptional human being. I've always known it. Your depth and sincerity is, there was more people like you. And I think about what the job you must be doing with your boys, to have a father that they can see the sensitivity and a way forward in a world that's sometimes a little bit confusing is so important. So thank you for the work that you're doing with Momentum Mental Health, and, bloody go get it, brother.
Thank you, Megan. No, I'm really proud and privileged to be able to support in a little way. And yeah, likewise, I reckon you do a great job too. Sherry,
Collaboration Society. No. It's all for you. So thank you so much for being my guest today, Chris.
Thank you, Megan. I will take that on. Appreciate it.
That's it for this week. Thanks for joining me on Big Little Small Talk. I hope you can make the time to join me next week. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on your favourite podcast app.
You've been listening to a 102.7 FM Toowoomba original podcast. For more podcasts or to listen to live and local Toowoomba radio, please visit 1027.com.au or download the Community Radio Plus app.